Welcome to the Underground, the Steel City Underground, the black and gold standard for Pittsburgh Steelers coverage. Now, here are your hosts, Joe Kuzma and Brian E. Roach.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to another edition of the Steel City Underground podcast presented by Under Armour. Before I get started here, I'd like to thank Under Armour for their sponsorship of our show over the last several weeks, but now we say la vie on that as we head into the football offseason, Super Bowl, everything else already over with. So thank you to the fine folks at Under Armour. I am your host, one half of the hosting team. You know what that means. My name's Joe Kuzma. That could only mean my cohort and partner in crime, Brian E. Roach, is also on the horn today. What's up, Bri?
It's a lovely, lovely day in South Jersey as we contemplate all of the mechanizations that have occurred in such a short span of time.
You know, before we get to whatever that big word is, you try to sound smart. You're outsmarting yourself if you don't know it, but oh man, we get a few potpourri items for you. Well, first of all, I haven't gotten to speak with you. I had a Noah stood in for you and did probably a better job than you do most of the time. So he may become.
He was awesome.
He may become my number two. You never know. So he's going to listen to that and be like, "Yay!" And you know, he actually listens to the show. Unlike our usual troll over at SCU, Eric Herman. I don't think he listens anymore at all. So I could just make fun of him as much as I want on the show, and I don't have to. There's no recourse. So I haven't spoken to you since the Super Bowl. What do you think, man? What's your thoughts?
Well, I will tell you that it ended the way I would have liked, minus one thing. Brady didn't retire at the end.
Oh yeah, I guess.
But maybe Gronk did, and I'll take that.
They are still winning without him, but he seems to be the killer. Why can't the Steelers stop that guy? Well, nobody could stop that guy.
Well, you look at the way the Eagles played him and you know it was insane. The entire first half, they doubled him, and he did nothing. The beginning of the second half and pretty much all the way through the second half, they decided, we did so well on him in the first half with two guys. Let's try it with one and see what happens. And he ate their lunch.
He took everyone's lunch money and then went and spent it on hookers and blow. That's what he went and did. Yeah. And
absolutely.
I don't even know how that's possible. Those things are illegal. You shouldn't be able to do that, let alone take someone's lunch money. What a bully, that Gronk, I tell you. Yeah, you know what? And you know what else? I honestly thought, I'm like, hey, you know what? The Patriots, they're going to lose some coordinators here. That's happened before, and Tom Brady hadn't really done much of anything. You know, maybe I'm speaking a little out of turn here, but most of his successes come with Josh McDaniels as his OC. I was thinking about Matt Patricia leaving to take the Detroit Lions head coaching job, and I'm like, well, their defense sucked anyways. So, hey, vindicated. The things we said would happen, a lot of those things did happen, and the Eagles won. So, I mean, that was great. Yep. So, Terry made me, eat my words as far as what I said about Nick Foles and, you know, some of that offline. I wasn't impressed with him over a period of weeks or whatever, and he gets to go to Disneyland. So, what do I know? Yeah, Josh McDaniels. So he pulls the fast one on the Colts, and they're left holding the bag, so to speak. So a lot of people talking about that, and Belichick did that years ago with the Jets too, and it worked out for him. I don't know that Josh. Everyone's like, oh, some people are like, this is business. Some people are like, 31 other teams aren't going to trust or do whatever. Oh, blame the process. Blame that you can't the Super Bowl and how you can interview. Look, they for weeks, Robert Kraft, the owner of the New England Patriots, knew that people were interviewing his coordinators. They have a really good idea as to whether or not they're leaving or not. And the Colts had this whole press conference and everything ready to go. They just needed the ink to dry on the contract. Well, the guy gets the pen, being Josh McDaniels, and changes his mind at the very last moment. And a lot of people are like, oh, well, blah, blah, blah. He knew for weeks. He couldn't have told them, so they weren't left in limbo as far as trying to find a head coach. I just thought it was very unprofessional.
Here, let me put it this way. They could have done one simple thing to avoid all of this. All they had to do was find out what his nickname is, and once they realized it was Massengill, they'd have known what he was.
Yeah. I'm not going to go there, but yeah. So the Patriots' offense is probably still just going to be. I mean, McDaniels is a good coordinator. I mean, the way that they were rebounding in that game, and they found spots everywhere, whether it was man coverage, zone coverage. I mean, and you got Brady. I mean, one of the greatest quarterbacks to play the game. You have that kind of duo. I often wonder what Belichick's success would be like without some of the coordinators he's had, but it's that coulda, woulda, shoulda. Then you have the guy who was backing up Brady, because Brady, 40 years old, throws for all-time playoff record, all-time Super Bowl record, over 500 yards, and it's unbelievable in and of itself. Can he do the same thing at 41? We don't know. We don't know what the Patriots backup quarterback situation is. Brian Hoyer, and that's it right now. Brady doesn't miss a whole lot of games. The only ones he really missed, he had 1 year with a lot of injuries, 1 year with the suspension deal with the deflate gate the year before. But Jimmy Garoppolo, he ain't around. He ain't around for anybody, because that guy just got paid a boatload of money for just a handful of games. What is it, like 70-some million guaranteed, 130 million overall, 5 years with the San Francisco 49ers. Man, I'll tell you what, they're rolling over there. Shanahan is the coach, John Lynch the GM. They've really got that ship righted right now. So, but I mean, it's an awful lot of money. But again, it's the price. This really is the price of doing business. If anybody that's quarterback needy. And if you're quarterback needy, it probably means you've been in the dumps and you have tons of cap space, cap room, money to blow. You're going to open up the wallets. You're going to pay these guys regardless of their experience. Jimmy G looks like kind of like a safe bet, but, I mean, it's an awful lot of money.
It's a huge amount of money, but, it's not a surprise. It was sort of interesting that Ben Roethlisberger threw off an offhand comment in an interview basically saying that quarterbacks should have their own salary cap. So there should be a cap for the rest of the team and a cap for the quarterback. And I kind of get his point, because quite frankly, teams are going to overpay for quarterbacks. Look, Jimmy G may be the next best thing since sliced bread, and he may not. He may be a guy who came in at the end of the season and played remarkably well. Let's remember other quarterbacks who've done that. Like you said, Brock Osweiler got paid.
Mm-hmm. Matt Flynn.
Mike Glennon. Yeah, Matt Flynn got paid. Mike Glennon got paid. These guys got paid, and did they really pan out? No. But teams are so desperate for finding that franchise quarterback, and when you look at the Super Bowl history of the last, 15, 20 years, and look at the quarterbacks that have been in the Super Bowl for the most part. I mean, there was one graphic that was out there a little while ago. It was something, I don't remember if it was the last 10 years, the last 15 years. It essentially had been, for 99% of the time, Ben, Brady, or Peyton.
Yeah.
In the AFC, from the AFC side. That's why these guys are going to overpay for these quarterbacks. Now, I'm not saying that they overpaid for Jimmy G. Yes, I am. They did. I'm saying that. No, I'm not. But look, he's now what, like the top paid player in the league, which will change the next time a quarterback gets a contract.
Yeah, exactly.
And it will continue to be that way. Because the bottom line is, in this league, if you don't have a franchise quarterback, you're probably not going to win. Probably. Now, the Eagles might start to say differently, but let's just, again, probably not going to win. I would venture to say if they had to be Nick Foles the entire season, maybe they wouldn't have been there. But
yeah, you've seen a few of these. What is it, Brad Johnson or whatever with the Buccaneers, and when they had a great defense, and Trent Dilfer with the Ravens when they had the great defense, and Joe Flacco with the Ravens and the great defense. And Joe Flacco being the other guy on that graphic, the only other guy not named Manning, Brady, or Roethlisberger from the AFC side, and he got paid to the point where that team can't afford to have anybody else. Ben's like the 10th highest paid QB now, I think. It's whoever's next to have their contract up is the guy that's going to get paid the most. So there is some validity to the whole salary cap thing, because they're just shelling out money. I mean, that's the way it used to be with the rookies, and you saw Jamarcus Russell went first overall to the Raiders many, many moons ago, probably considered by and far the largest bust. I still say he's the smartest guy that's ever played football, because he parlayed a decent year or two in college into 36, 40 million or whatever that was guaranteed to him. And then he was just chilling. I'm not going to come to camp. I'm not going to do anything. And then he didn't do anything and he was out of the league, and I think he got paid. So that prompted all the CBA changes with how rookie contracts and that are done. Maybe quarterbacks are next. I mean, that's probably a topic for another day, but I just wanted to bring up, man, that's a lot of money for Jimmy Garoppolo. You saw Matt Flynn years ago. He came in for Aaron Rodgers, threw I think 5 touchdowns in a game in like a week 17, almost like a Landry Jones type deal. Imagine if Landry went in against the Browns, threw 5 TDs and 500 yards. I would lose my mind. But so with a lot of people. And then he becomes a free agent and somebody throws some big money, like 4 years, 60 mil at him or something crazy, and you're just like, huh? I think most of the people in Pittsburgh would be like, yeah, go ahead, take him.
Yeah.
So I mean, I would be in that same camp. I'm like, I'm not paying that guy $60. In a way, maybe $6, but I love Landry. That's the other thing that's funny about that. But I see like the difference in the value now. Jimmy G has shown some promise, but of course we got some Steelers things to talk about here too. But before I kick over to all of that, Brian, do you care about the Winter Olympics at all?
No.
I was going to ask you what your favorite thing might be with the Winter Olympics. I'm telling you, man, a lot of people talking about curling. I think curling has gotten a bad rap for many, many years. It can be exciting to watch.
No.
Yeah, I'm telling you. What was it?
Yeah, right. No, it can't. It's not. Stop that. It's not exciting to watch that. I don't get excited by watching guys sweep ice.
Well, I mean, I don't get excited to do it myself, but it's interesting. It's something different. I don't know. People like the bobsled or figure skating or I mean, I don't know. I'm just not that big. I remember. I don't know if you knew this. Did you remember, like, back at I think it was the previous Winter Olympics, Vernon Davis, tight end, where's he at now? Redskins, was with the 49ers, was like an honorary captain for the U.S. curling team. And he said he wanted a future in it, and he absolutely loved it, and it blew my mind, and I absolutely had to turn it in. So that's where the curling thing is. And there was also a guy trolling on Fox Sports Radio. There was somebody standing in for Colin Cowherd the last couple days, and all he's been talking about is the most important thing is curling. Now, curling was on late at night, Eastern time versus Korean time, and so I didn't really get to catch any of it, but I may. I mean, there's hockey, there's speed skating, but the snowboard thing is the thing that I'm most interested in with Shaun White, and I was never into X Games or anything like that, but that fascinated me of just how dominating he was and just the perfection. It's like poetry in motion, but there are things in motion, as you alluded to, mechanisms or mechaniques or whatever the word was.
Mechanizations.
That's not a word. That's
mechanization.
That's just not.
Yes, it is.
No, I don't think so. I'm gonna get out the Scrabble dictionary in a second and find out. That doesn't even fit on the board. Don't be trying to get triple word score on me. Yeah, people want to change. They want to change with the Steelers. They saw Randy Fichtner come over, be promoted from the QB coach to now he's QB coach / offensive coordinator, or maybe the other way around, replacing Todd Haley. Hey, you know what else? I was thinking that the Colts missed out on Todd Haley, man. McDaniels really stuck it to them. He could have been there. Maybe he could have been a head coach, just like Bruce Arians. He went there, became the interim head coach. There's a path there, a career path. Then you end up back in Arizona. It makes sense to me. He's not going to have he's not going to have a job in a year when the Browns clean house again. But that's aside from the point. But there are other moves. There's other moving and shaking going on with the Steelers. Now we knew Richard Mann was already going to leave as the wide receivers coach. Now, long-time assistant head coach, D-line coach, James Mitchell. This will probably be his final year, so it already looks like they have lined up. Or did he step aside officially, or he's just taking the assistant head coach job and kind of grooming the guy for the next job? We're going to get that in a second. And then, of course, Carnell Lake stepped away, too.
Yes, I'm going to jump back onto the Winter Olympics for 1 second and tell you what my actual favorite thing is. It's the luge.
Oh, the luge. Okay.
The luge. And it's because of the Seinfeld joke. It has absolutely nothing to do with the luge. It's the Seinfeld joke where anybody could be the luge. Ooh, he pointed his toes. What an athlete.
The Seinfeld, this would be great to just get somebody. Man, I wish we had another coaching opening because they're moving a lot of guys. They're moved, let's see, defensive line coach, defensive backs coach, brand new.
Yep.
A lot of people want Joey Porter kind of out too, but the outside linebackers, we're going to beat the dead horse on this and keep saying how they keep playing, they drop into coverage, et cetera, et cetera. But I really do think, man, maybe Fichtner can't do the quarterback job. They should look at hiring Art Vandelay. He's a man of many talents, I hear.
I've heard that too.
That's another Seinfeld joke.
Many talents.
If you're too young to know, Google it. You'll find it. So what's the deal with all this stuff, man? There's a lot of change going on here. Haley out, and now a new wide receivers coach, Daryl Drake, another defensive line coach, Carl Dunbar. I'm really excited about that. And then Tom Bradley, a defensive backs coach. There was a promotion, assistant offensive line coach Sean Serrett, just went from being the guy who goes and gets Tomlin's coffee to kind of being groomed under Mike Munchak as his assistant. And then they hired some guy that apparently his father, the nepotism thing's coming here again. They're going to be mad like they were with the Haley thing. The Yinzers are going to Yinz. But this Blaine Stewart now is the guy who gets the coffee, apparently. Maybe a thank you thing from Tomlin, maybe a way to get his foot in the door or whatever. But none of the former players, no Rod Woodsons, no Ike Taylors, no Hines Wards. But there's change. There's change coming.
Yeah, absolutely. And, look, the truth is, as much as we all think it's great to bring an ex-player in, the fact is that more ex-players are not good coaches than are good coaches. And just because they could do something, play the position, doesn't mean they can effectively communicate it or teach it. I really, really, really like the Carl Dunbar signing. I think that's a great fit for the Steelers. It's a guy whose history is really good. Every place he's gone, he's had a solid line. I mean, he was with Minnesota. They had a tremendous defensive line. He was with Buffalo when they were probably one of the top 10 lines in the league. And even though he got fired from Buffalo, it wasn't because of performance. It was because of coaching turnover. He's been with Alabama. As much as I don't want to say this, they literally have been one of the defensive powerhouses over the past couple years. He knows his job, and to learn from John Mitchell, who has been a tremendous defensive line coach, and Mitchell is also a no-nonsense kind of guy, and to give Mitchell the ability to move into fully being the assistant head coach and helping Mike Tomlin with player stuff and a variety of other things to free it up. I think this is just a tremendous change for the Steelers. And I can't speak highly enough, I think, about Dunbar and what I think he can bring to the team. He's a no-nonsense guy. He is a guy who believes in being solid in fundamentals, and that's going to benefit in the long term how our defensive line plays. And the same is true about the defensive backs coach that they hired. This is a guy, what is it, Dunbar, right? No, I'm talking about Dunbar.
Remind me. Yeah. Tom, I said Tom Brady when my cousin texted it to me.
Bradley, right? Bradley.
He's like, I'm like, Brady quit? We got him. He's going to coach now.
Got him.
He's going to coach our defensive backs on how to not get burned by himself.
Yeah, Tom Bradley. This is another guy. His defense, he's been a defensive coordinator. He's been a backs coach. He's been a billion different things. And, he is a guy who believes in fundamentals, solid tackling. Hey, who's gonna argue with somebody getting on Artie Burns about solid tackling skills? Nobody, right?
Yeah.
Or let alone Artie, let's talk about the safeties as well. I mean, the entire defensive backfield needs to have been better, and I think this is a good move. I like Carnell Lake. I think Carnell Lake got a lot of grief over things that were maybe not always valid. But, when you go step backwards, which is what they did this year. The year before they got to the AFC Championship game. This year they're out one game earlier. When you take that step backwards, you can assume some kind of change is going to happen. And those are two interesting ones. And then, the other one, of course, is the wide receivers coach, right?
Oh, yeah. You left me some scraps here. And, I mean, Daryl Drake, for the first time in a while, the Steelers actually grabbed somebody from the Cardinals instead of vice versa. He's been the coach there for a while in the same position, wide receivers coach from 2013 to 2017, previously with the Bears from 2004 to 2012. And I just like what he's done with, you look at some of the guys that have been under his tutelage. You have obviously Larry Fitzgerald, which that's not a very difficult player to coach, but you have the two Browns. You have Jerron Brown and John Brown. You had Michael Floyd there for a period of time. Andre Roberts, who was basically like, he wasn't the biggest, flashiest name, but I think there's not going to be a huge drop-off here with Daryl Drake. I like it. It was kind of like well, yeah, maybe. So, and he's had some success too with some of these guys that were in Chicago. I'm actually trying to pull up some of them so I don't, because man, you're going back like 04 and stuff like that. I can't remember everybody, but Muhsin Muhammad, there's a guy who had a pretty decent career as a receiver. That's going back to 05. I'm trying to look. Let's see here. Let's kick it forward a little bit because I know I'm missing a very big name, and I keep thinking Alshon Jeffrey, and it's not the guy that I want to say. And Alshon may not have been drafted during Drake's tenure there. Let me see. I'm trying to. I can't find who it is right now. But aside from that point, I mean, the guys that were in Arizona, they all seem to be talented receivers, somewhat handicapped by bad quarterback play. And I think that Drake will do just fine. He has tons of college experience before that. He was in the previous position, he was at Texas from 98 to 03. He was a wide receivers coach with 1 year as associate head coach. He was an offensive coordinator with Baylor. He was a wide receivers coach at Georgia, 92 to 96. And then he got his start at Western Kentucky, and he's a former NFL player, but he was mostly like a practice squad type guy. He played for the Redskins for a year with the Bengals. He toiled around in the CFL as well. So the guy has tons of experience. He's been under a lot of different coaching trees throughout his tenure, and I do believe that he is a good fit and a good hire for the Steelers. He comes into a great situation with Antonio Brown. I mean, geez, you talk about maybe the best position. Then I say wide receiver coaches are hard to find, and it's a very important position, to a very important role to fill, as is maybe a quarterback coach can be. But, I mean, he's got Antonio Brown. He's got Martavis Bryant. He's got Juju Smith-Schuster, and he's got a load of other guys. And Lord knows they could even draft a receiver this year. I don't want to hang myself with that rope yet, but it's always possible.
Absolutely. I'm not going to go down that road yet either, but I really, again, it's a solid hire. You've got a guy who's about fundamentals, who is going to continue on with the way Steelers tradition goes. I mean, you've got a willing blocker in Juju. He's going to help the rest of them, embrace that part of the position. I think he will be beneficial to Martavis Bryant. I think that, I think he will be beneficial to all of them. Sometimes you just need a different approach or a different voice speaking it to you, trying to communicate what people are trying to hear. Because Richard Mann was a tremendous wide receivers coach. I mean, he developed a lot of really good wide receivers. The Steelers have been kind of a wide receiver factory. And, we will have to wait and see, but I don't dislike this hire. Sometimes, you do have change through attrition, which, may be the case, definitely was the case with Richard Mann, and may have been the case with Carnell Lake, where they, both just decided it was time to not do this anymore and do something else. So it's a good, solid hire. I like all of these moves right now. The question will be whether they're done or not.
And I found the name. It was escaping me because he's bounced around the league so much. But Brandon Marshall was there for a season or two with Daryl Drake, and he did have Alshon Jeffrey as well. So, I mean, it's a pretty good resume of receivers when you talk about the guys between the two teams that he was with. And he has some experience of going deep in the playoffs, too. The Bears lost in the 2010 season to the Packers, who went on to the Super Bowl. That was the NFC title game, that division rivalry. Of course, Packers and Steelers played that year in the Super Bowl. There was some up and down, too. He was underneath Lovie Smith as far as that goes. So I like Daryl Drake. I love everything you said about Carl Dunbar is spot on. I mean, if you've watched the Alabama, those guys on the defensive line, I mean, they're machines. They're animals. I mean, I think of like Ashawn Robinson, for example, is one that pops right into my brain, and that's who Carl Dunbar coached. He made a lot of pro football players. There are a lot. It also doesn't hurt when you're Alabama and you can pretty much pick and choose who you want. You're what? 3, 4, 5 teams that get that type of privilege, like Ohio State being another one. But I mean, yeah, that's everybody going after Greg Schiano too. Side note, Buckeyes fans here, me and Brian talking. But everybody keeps going after Schiano, who's staying. But Munchak is staying, so that's an important one too. I remember we were a little terrified of that, and I do believe we're going to be talking about some of these comments that Art Rooney made, but just some tidbits. He wants a long-term deal with Le'Veon Bell. We will in a future upcoming episode over the next week or two. We're going to try and get these out as consistent as possible, but please understand, folks, that there's only so much we can talk about as far as news. So we're going to talk about Bell and whether he's worth it or not. Hopefully we have time to kick that in before maybe he does sign a contract or tells them, he changed his Instagram, Brian. The world's ending.
Oh, yeah.
Took Steelers off of it. Oh, no, that means he won't be back. So, but Art Rooney says he will. Or they're working on a long-term deal. He also, there was alluded to, Ben wants a contract extension. Well, that's a big change of heart. And he also said, if James Harrison wants to have the conversation about coming back and retiring as a Steeler, they'll have that conversation. He was very non-committal on answering that in any other way.
Yeah, it was. I've listened to it several times, and it makes me laugh. You can kind of hear in the tone of his voice, now's not going to be the time. If James doesn't decide to play, or look, there's the honest truth that the Patriots may go, yeah, thanks, see ya. By the time training camp rolls around, it would not surprise me to see James Harrison get cut, especially if they draft somebody to be in that position and they get back some of their injured guys. And if that's the case, and James doesn't find himself a new home and decides, you know what, I want to kind of come back to Pittsburgh and retire, it may not happen right away. There's a little like, Bengals is one thing, my friend, but Patriots, that's a different animal.
Yeah, and particularly that he forced his way out of town. And I wanted to mention this. I know you're not the hockey guy. I know some of our listeners are. And I was at the game Tuesday where Marc-Andre Fleury, for those who aren't the hockey followers, a longtime Pittsburgh Penguins goalie, won 2 Stanley Cups with 3 Stanley Cups, I'm sorry. But he got hurt, and a younger guy came in and filled his role, Matt Murray. And then there was a huge talk about whether or not they could keep 2 goaltenders on the roster, salary cap reasons. You usually pay one guy, and then you have a younger guy who spells them sometimes. So when they had the coaching change with Mike Sullivan, who a lot of people want, hey, look what they did there. They could get rid of Mike Tomlin. Look, they play a lot more games in hockey. They play 16 in the NFL. Somebody gets hurt, Aaron Rodgers goes down, Andrew Luck goes down. Well, at least McCarthy has had some success. Chuck Pagano has had none. He's out of town, and they don't have a coach right now, period, because they were counting on McDaniels and that next best thing. So 16 games isn't a great body of work, but that's a sidetrack from this James Harrison, Marc-Andre Fleury parallel. Fleury was the ultimate teammate. He supported this decision. He understood he lost his job due to injury. This is almost like if Nick Foles took over for Carson Wentz next year. And let's say Carson Wentz didn't complain, and then Foles gets hurt and Wentz it's almost Phil Simms, Jeff Hostetler all over again. But there was no controversy. And then Fleury took the back seat, and the Penguins win the first of the two back-to-back Stanley Cups. And then the roles reversed, and Murray got hurt, and then Murray took the back seat to Fleury. So then you have the expansion draft. You had they didn't protect Fleury. Everybody kind of knew this was a way for them to dump the salary and not and this was amicable. Both sides they were okay with this. Everyone was okay with this. So what you saw happen was on Tuesday, the home team Pittsburgh Penguins run a video package during the first time out. It was roughly a little over 2 minutes, maybe 2.5 minutes long, for their former goalkeeper. This was the first time he comes back and returns to Pittsburgh as a member of the Vegas Golden Knights, and the guy is in tears. They're standing. It lasted about 5 minutes because there was another 2 minutes, and then the referees finally said, hey, we got to get this game going. Standing ovation, people chanting his name. That will never happen with James Harrison because he was not the good teammate. The first time all of this happened, it was the salary thing, almost similar, and he went to the Bengals, and then he was ready to retire, and everybody was cool with it, but he wasn't, he comes back as a Bengal. People are going to boo him. People boo Mike Wallace for the way he handled his business leaving Pittsburgh. Harrison forced his way out. He was not a good teammate, and he goes to the enemy. He is not getting the Marc-Andre Fleury treatment if he ever comes and plays again against the Steelers. It's just not going to happen that way.
Yeah, it's unfortunate. I've seen articles that go both ways, that Harrison has destroyed his legacy, and other articles that say he hasn't. And look, let's all admit that time does ease some of this pain, and it helps that he didn't win the Super Bowl last week.
It does.
Had he won that game, negative feelings would have abounded much longer. But the fact that the Patriots lost, and we all got to enjoy a few images of Debo kicking confetti and being a little sulky and wondering whether he had made a good decision, or the appearance that he was wondering that, that will help with time, but it's going to take time. The bottom line is he still was a tremendous player for the Steelers. He, during the time he was here, he's the all-time sack leader. He was a defensive player of the year. He was the face, in many ways, good and bad, of the franchise for several years. And, he's iconic within the team's legacy and history. But is it possible to really destroy all that? I don't know. Look, seeing him in the Patriots uniform was definitely more disgusting than seeing Franco Harris in a Seahawks uniform. It was more bothersome to me. But, in 5 years, I don't know. Who's going to care?
There's a reason for that, too, because the Seahawks weren't a contender that era of Steelers teams were competing with tooth and nail to try and defeat and go on to win a Super Bowl. So I think that's where the difference lies. Franco also didn't cry his way mid-season off of the team. That was just one of those another business financial decision, much in the same way that Debo left the first time. And I want to just say, earlier I said, I don't know anything. What do I know? But on the other hand, I feel like the smartest guy in the room when I told everyone, and this was almost, it's very difficult to say this because by no means do I hate James Harrison, and I'm appreciative and respectful of everything he's done for the Steelers. But at the same time, it's like there's a way to handle your business. And everybody's like, oh, well, he wanted to play. Well, what happens when these guys I'll throw out Marshawn Lynch as a famous one. Hey, I'm going to sit out because I don't like my current contract and I want more money. There's really no difference between that and moaning about playing time, and it didn't sit too well with me. But alas, we'll see. I mean, Harrison now, he might be done, and other teams are going to look at that too. Like, well, does he have anything he could bring to us? Well, if he comes to our team and then he isn't happy about playing, is he going to be a locker room cancer? And that kind of reminds me of the Josh McDaniels thing about going back on his word, et cetera, et cetera. So it'll be interesting to see. I just, I don't want to say thrilled to see Harrison underperform in the Super Bowl. I was more happy that, hey, the Steelers got it right. That was my approach on it. They were right about this guy. They were vindicated, and handling it the way that they handled, letting him go, not playing him, whatever be the case there. There's some people, I've read some comments on Facebook, and it's more or less some people that don't understand how people play in different positions and whatnot. They said, well, they could have used him when Ryan Shazier went down. No, they couldn't. He's not an inside linebacker. And in the current Steelers 3-4 scheme, which we'll be talking about more later, Dupree and Watt, they drop into coverage, and Harrison just wasn't capable of doing the same. He also missed some tackles in that Super Bowl. It's just very un-Debo-like. And it just, one tackle, one solo, one assisted, nothing else. 7 solo tackles in 3 playoff games. It doesn't really scream a guy that's, worth keeping on the roster the following year. Had that been during the regular season and cost the Steelers a game, I think people would have turned on him instead of, it's a lot of legacy feelings. People would still put Troy Polamalu or Hines Ward out there if you asked just a casual fan. So I'm rambling.
Absolutely.
Maybe you're rambling. Any more for the greater good?
I don't know. I think we've got a lot of stuff to talk about during this offseason. I think there's a lot of interesting storylines that we can get to. So the good news is, from our standpoint, we'll talk Steelers all day long, and we'll keep doing it through the next few months to try and carry us until training camp finally starts and rolls around.
Oh, man, come on. The draft's coming around the corner. We're just not prepared to start identifying players yet. We want to see who the Steelers are interested in. Some people have asked about the draft book, too, already, and we will do that. We'll try and have it out a little earlier. It was a mammoth undertaking for us to put together. We may have some help on that this year, and it may be back bigger and better than ever. But I could tell you one thing. Come on, people! Stop with quarterback. Stop with quarterback. Not a need for the Steelers. And
please.
And then for those, I will say media outlets in quotations. I'll protect the guilty. Steelers eyeing inside linebackers. Well, gee, we bring out the Travelocity or whatever, the Orbits guy, the Captain Obvious, and we could high five on that. You think? So yeah, exactly. But I'll leave it there. If you have any questions, fan mail at steelcityunderground.com. Some of you leave comments, too, and it's like, hey, you know what? I agree with you. I try to answer myself, or Brian answer as many of those as we can. There's also the hotline. I forget what the number is, but it's on the website right now, 203-900-4728 for SCU, something like that. So don't forget to subscribe if you're on YouTube or on iTunes. Until next time, my name's Joe. His name's Brian. Be safe. Be good. We'll catch you later.
We would like to thank you for listening and remind our listeners to follow us on social media and our website, www.steelcityunderground.com.